Kill me! I'm here! Kill me!
Hey everybody, this is Matthew Movies coming at you with my review of Jackie, the 2016 biopic that's Oscar nominated about Jacqueline Kennedy, later to become Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. For those few of you that maybe lived in a cave and don't know who that is, that's the First Lady under the presidency of John F. Kennedy. And this movie basically is centered around the situations that, or the days that took place after her husband's assassination. And obviously this is a very infamous moment in modern history. I'm sure pretty much anybody who's watching this has seen the footage of it happening, and it's, you know, an atrocious thing that happened to this man who had the potential to do a lot of great things for the country. He seemed to be very forward-thinking as far as civil rights and a lot of the things, the issues that you know, I think he could have done great things for, but unfortunately his life was taken far too early. But this movie really doesn't get into his life very much at all. It shows you her perspective on her husband's death and all the situations around it, because one of the most famous aspects of that time period is everybody remembers, or everybody has seen the footage of his funeral procession that was extremely long and was televised and seen by millions and millions of people. And to see kind of this version's attempt at showing how that came to be was really interesting. Now, there was parts of this movie that I had absolutely no ideas about like Jacqueline Kennedy's efforts to rehabilitate the White House and give it back some of the history that previous First Ladies had kind of bit by bit taken away. I thought that was pretty fascinating. The first couple's patronage of the arts was interesting. Some of the aspects around his actual death, like her in the movie, you hear her describe what it was like being there, and I'm not 100% sure if that was taken from like historical things she actually said. I know that she did. A lot of this movie is done from the perspective of an interview that she gave, which is one that she did 100% give, but I don't know how much of the verbiage that is in the movie is picked from that, but it feels very authentic. One of my criticisms about this movie is after it was over, I did look into things, and one of the things that does play a fairly decent part of the movie is the Lyndon Johnson and his wife coming into power after Kennedy's death, and how they are kind of they don't seem very concerned about the grieving widow of the man who was the president. And I looked into it after the movie was over, because that seemed like something that, you know, it could have happened, but didn't really strike me as being overly legitimate. So, and from what I've seen, it looks like there's actual recordings of a lot of their dealings with her, and that they were extremely gracious, and that they try to be helpful to her in every way possible. But that is not what happens in this movie, and I do kind of understand that, because it kind of gives her something to kind of hit up against and fight, and it gives you those scenes kind of give you an idea of like her tenacious personality and how she was going to fight for what she felt was right. But I do wish that they kind of found another way of showing that, instead of making the former president and his wife look kind of bad, because obviously they should have been much more forgiving of her perspective, or in this kind of situation. So I didn't really appreciate that. And I thought the acting in this movie was top-notch across the board. Peter Sarsgaard plays Robert Kennedy, and he is very stoic in this movie, and he really feels like all the footage I've ever seen of Robert Kennedy, he's a very poised gentleman and very articulate, and Sarsgaard plays that to the nines. Of course, Natalie Portman is fantastic as Jackie. I think she totally deserves her Oscar nomination for Best Actress. However, I will say, I don't think that this movie should have been nominated for Best Picture. It wasn't, and I know some people felt that was a bit of a disservice to the film. But I don't think so. I don't think the movie deserved to be nominated for that. I think it was a very well made movie. I appreciate it. I respected it more than anything else. It was a very good effort, and it told a very interesting story. But I didn't think it was super compelling. I thought aspects of it were, because of the performance Natalie Portman gave. You really empathized with her situation and all that. But I felt like it could have been a much more interesting movie. And even if it was, and I'm not saying like I didn't like the way they trumped up the whole thing with Lyndon Johnson, and I'm not looking for them to be overly dramatizing what happened. But it is such a compelling story that I think even in the mundanity, like it could have shown how mundane it is, even though you've gone through this horrible situation, that your days just be like one day comes after the next, no matter what you're going through. They could have shown that, and they did to a degree, but not in a way that was very compelling. Like you empathized with her loss, but you never empathized that much with her situation, or at least I didn't. And obviously part of that is because nobody knows what it's like to be a first lady, but I think the film should have made you feel like maybe for a moment you kind of knew what it was like a little bit. Now, I never got that out of this movie. So I give this movie, like I would say this movie is a bit of a mixed bag. I'd say overall, I absolutely respect it. I think it's a good movie, but it's not a great movie. So those are my thoughts on Jackie. Let me know in the comments below if you saw it, what you thought. Please hit that like button. It does marvelous things for my channel. It gets my content in front of people that would have otherwise never come across it. And other than that, have yourself a nice day. After you hit subscribe, please hit subscribe if you haven't already. Have a good day.